Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Ethan Tashobia. He's joining us live from Kigali in Rwanda. Ethan, so what's the latest update on the migrants deal between Rwanda and the U.S. and why has Rwanda agreed to this deal?
Beatrice, I think one of the most surprising elements in this new development is the fact that the deal was signed in June, earlier, a few months ago, weeks ago rather. That's what has surprised most of the analysts here that I spoke to earlier. What we know is that the vetting is already ongoing for the 10 first individuals that will be sent to Rwanda by the U.S. authorities. If that goes on and the vetting is successful, they should be coming to Rwanda in the next few weeks, according to the officials we spoke to earlier today. Now, what remains to be seen is if there will be the next batch of these migrants will be coming, that's the 240, or they will be coming in phases, and that's not something that they're sure about at this particular moment. But what we're sure of and what we've been told, they did not specify the dates, but they are sure that the first group of 10 individuals that are being vetted currently will be coming in the next weeks. That's what the officials mentioned to us earlier on.
And Ethan, what exactly do we know about the status of these migrants that are being sent to Rwanda?
So what we know at this moment is that these are the people whose asylum claims were rejected by the U.S. and the U.S. authorities decided to send them to the third receiving country, which is Rwanda at this particular moment. We also know that some of them are convicted criminals with varying cases, of course. But what we do not know is the magnitude of the cases with which they were convicted on. And that's actually some of the things that have raised concerns here among analysts why Rwanda is willing to receive convicted criminals. We spoke to some officials, especially on the opposition and the analysts, and saying that Rwanda should not be receiving such individuals because they may pose a threat to the Rwandan security and safety. But those concerns were also addressed, saying that Rwanda will make sure that they vet each individual case by case and make sure that the person who will be received in Rwanda is safe to be received, rehabilitated, and reintegrated into the Rwandan community.
And Rwanda has made other migrant deals before, most recently with the United Kingdom. Tell us about some of these and their current status in Rwanda.
Rwanda, in general, has hosts over 100,000 migrants and asylum seekers from different countries, from the neighboring DRC, from Burundi, from as far as Afghanistan and Israel, as well as people who, there was a deal that fell apart, the 2022 deal with the UK. Rwanda has intentionally put itself forward to receive people who are in need of asylum and refugees because the authorities here believe that Rwandans fully understand the plight and the suffering of the migrants and asylum seekers due to the history of this nation, where most people from as far as 1959 were Rwandans were forced to flee the country and went to different parts of the world. So the current authorities believe that offering such asylum and asylum to those who are in need is sort of offering a pathway to those, decent pathway to those that are in need of asylum and refugee and resettlement. So that's basically the basis of why Rwanda is putting itself forward to receive these people. And they're not, according to officials, they're not just stopping on the U.S. If any other country is willing to come into agreement with Rwanda, we've seen intentions from countries, from the governments of Denmark before. They're saying if any country is willing to support Rwanda to offer a decent pathway to these asylum seekers, Rwanda will be willing to offer such. Beatrice.
Ethan Tashobia joining us there from Kigali. Thank you. Well, let's take a little deeper into this and Joining us now, Professor David Monda from the Political Science Department, City University of New York. Today he's joining us via Zoom from Nairobi here in Kenya. Thank you very much, Professor Monda, for joining us. Rwanda is set to receive up to 250 deportees from the U.S. What do you make of this deal?
I think it's a very problematic deal from a legal standpoint, from the principle of non-refoulement of these detainees. The idea that if you're going to send these migrants or deportees to second or third countries, they must be safe. The deportees need to have undergone due process, and the conditions in that country must be secure so that the deportees have their human rights observed. I think also the terms of the deal are also very nefarious. As you'd mentioned earlier, Rwanda is getting a grant from the US. We don't know how much that will be. So is this a quid pro quo between Rwanda and the US in terms of deal making? But I think the third element is the legal due process question. This deal goes against international conventions and international law.
So previous migrants sent to African countries, South Sudan and Eswatini, they were migrants with convictions, criminal convictions. But the deal with Rwanda stipulates that the country still has room to vet and approve the deportees. So what does this really mean in terms of leverage for Rwanda?
I think that's a joke, to be quite honest. If the U.S. cannot vet, if the U.S. has vetted these migrants to be dangerous criminals, I think Rwanda accepting this deal, it really appears like Rwanda is accepting to be a dumping ground for the enfant terrible, the non-wanted dumping ground for migrants that the U.S. doesn't want. It's not a good image for Rwanda, and it's not a good image for Africa more broadly. But we also need to remember that, as you'd mentioned, Eswatini and South Sudan were also pressured to accept these migrants. So we see a very asymmetrical relationship where the US appears to be picking small and weak countries like Rwanda, Eswatini, and South Sudan, and it creates a very asymmetrical system of leverage. It's an unfair power situation where the US can actually demand that these countries accept these deals. And in the case of Rwanda, let's not forget the US and Rwanda are cooperating on mineral extraction in the DRC. So because of the unclear situation of this particular deal, there's a lot of other wider questions about the relationship between the US, Rwanda, these deportees, and some of the issues that have been going on in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda.
So you've mentioned that what Rwanda is likely to get out of such a deal, but clarify for us, what do you think a nation like Rwanda will get out of such a deal, and how does this benefit Rwanda even in terms of its international relations?
I think for one, in terms of Rwanda's international relations, Rwanda is a small landlocked country. So by Rwanda stepping in front of the other 55 African countries and accepting these migrants, it's a question of prestige and status for Rwanda. Rwanda seems to be punching way above its weight. I think also it really creates a situation of a quid pro quo, as I mentioned earlier, where Rwanda seems to be getting material benefits. Essentially, it's being paid to accept the rejects from the United States. So the Kagame administration benefits handsomely in relation to that. I think the third element also is that Rwanda would tend to benefit by balancing, using this good relationship with the Trump administration to reduce criticism against Rwanda's notorious human rights violations on human rights activists and on many of its citizens. So the US would not criticize Rwanda as harshly as it would if Rwanda had rejected these migrants on human rights concerns. So Rwanda is benefiting on a whole range of elements: economic, legal, and also international diplomacy.